I'd like to call the Town of Belgrade Board of Select Persons, April 20, 2021 meeting to order. We'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible,
with
with
liberty.
liberty and justice for all. That is great.
Meeting.
Make a motion, we open the meeting.
Is there a second? Moved in second. All those in favor?
Just bring it up.
3, 4, 5, 4. The meeting is now open. So the first part of our meeting is public comment. What I'd like to do is show everyone, if you would like to speak, I'll do my best to catch everyone, but down on the bottom of your screen, if you scroll your cursor down to the bottom under reactions, there is a spot for raising your hand. If you raise your hand, it brings you to the top of the Zoom and over to the left so that I can see that you have something that you would like to say. So if everyone, tonight will be the first night we'll really try to put that into practice. So the public comment section is where folks can bring issues or concerns to the board's attention that will not already be taken up as another agenda item. I just want folks to keep in mind that the agenda items are business, orders of business for the board. We're happy to answer questions. However, we can't always go back to the beginning and literally from the beginning with an explanation. So your agenda packet is always available on the town's website, and you can request that you get a packet for all the meetings. So just a little heads up on that. Happy to answer some questions, but it's not really a debate. It's business. So that being said, is there anyone here who has something that they would like to bring to the board's attention that will not be covered on tonight's agenda?
I do.
All right, Gary.
My name is Gary Nadeau. I have a camp on Great Pond. I've been there 47 years. And I'm typically putting in my dock and boat right after ISO. And it was very early this year. Put my dock in and immediately noticed, man, is the lake low. It's lower than I have ever seen it. It's a resource for the area, obviously.
Oh, wow.
Where I have 40 feet of dock, and it's only 18 inches of water at the end of it. So trying to put a boat in up against the dock is pretty bad. At the boat launch, I witnessed a pontoon boat trying to launch, the state boat launch. They had driven the pickup truck almost entirely in the water to be able to push the boat off because the water is so low, it wouldn't float off. I raise this concern because I know the state controls what can be done with the dam and everything else, but it might be time to push back to the state right now and show them that local control is needed. Preset levels at Labor Day and Columbus Day and everything else, when the water, we were in a drought situation at that time, and the water was already low. Right now, the water's a foot down, and the state would like to have it, Belgrade, 3 inches higher than pond level by Memorial Day. So we're 15 inches from that. That won't happen unless we have a hurricane. We're not going to get that much rain. People will have difficulty pumping water from the lake. They'll have problems putting, I know a gentleman has a pontoon boat. The pontoons are on sand at the end because the water is so shallow. It's going to be a problem for a lot of boaters. I know it's nothing you can solve right now, but I want to bring it to your attention that if the dam chairman, and I don't mean that derogatory, to the state attention that, the guidelines are great, but you got local control. Right now, water's being let out of the dam, out of Great Pond, and it's this low of the lake. Yes, water has to be let out because of spawning at the dam, but it should be a bare minimum at most to try to build that water up. I'm just bringing the attention. I mean, I'm going to add a section of dock. I mean, right now my boat goes under the dock. So I got to lower it and put another section out just to be able to get a boat in front of my camp. So I don't know if a lot of you are aware of that, but it's really bad. My camp's like 3 camps from Skip Hammond at Hatch Cove. And I talked to several other people there and the same thing. They've never seen it this low, ever. So it's a problem the town can do. I know it's like pushing a rope, dealing with the state sometimes, but I would appreciate it. I talked to Melanie and I talked to Craig Alexander. He gave me some of the numbers and he said, our hands are tied of what we can do. Well, it's time local control. I mean, it's the resource you have. The state shouldn't be giving all the guidelines. That's my 2 cents.
We appreciate it.
Okay, just wanted to go on record.
Well, and I will ask if we, Gary and I had talked earlier, I think it was 4 or 5 years ago that we were in the same situation where we had, not a lot of snow. We were going into the winter after having had a drought, and then we didn't have the snow melt and we didn't have the spring rains. But it wasn't quite this bad.
No,
And
no.
we had approached the state.
This is the worst. Yeah, worst I've ever seen.
Yeah, so we may want to revisit that and see what we can possibly do. If, the state took control of it in 1985 because there were some complaints that it wasn't being managed, they weren't all being managed the same across the state. And there had been some complaints in Belgrade, which is why those guidelines were put down. But as Gary and I talked about today, and any of us who were alive in 1985 remember that the weather that we see now is nothing like the weather we saw back then. The winters are not the same, and there's, global warming. There's a bunch of other things that we probably want to start taking a look at, see what we can do to help.
Yeah. So I appreciate anything you can do.
All right, we appreciate you bringing it to our attention.
And good luck with the Zoom meeting.
Thank you. You're not going to stay?
No, I've seen enough with the remote learning with the kids already.
Well, have a good night.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have anything at this section that they would like to bring forward to the board's attention? All right, seeing none, we'll move right on to old business. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the April 6, 2021 Select Board meeting minutes. I'll take a motion to open that item.
I'll make that motion.
And a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that is open for discussion. All right, seeing none. Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Dan? Ernie?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 5 yeses, no nos. All right, next up, we have the discussion and the consideration of replacing appliances damaged by salt contamination. I'll take a motion to open that item.
Make that motion.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, that is open. Anthony, do you want to lead this?
Sure. So you folks will recall that at our last meeting, Mrs. Moran, am I pronouncing that correctly?
It's actually Henry.
Oh, Henry, I'm sorry. Mrs. Henry, I was just reading the name off your screen, and Mrs. Burgess approached us about a concern that Mrs. Burgess has just about her appliances becoming corroded there in the salt well contamination area. I contacted the Department of Transportation, and they did express a willingness to partner with the town in order to replace Mrs. Burgess's appliances. And they suggested that that could be done one of two ways, that they could take the lead on that and invoice us for that. And we now do have some funds available to address those sort of expenses. Or they said if the town was willing to take the lead in order to secure the appliances and have our contracted plumber install that and then invoice them, that they would be they'd be willing to consider that. So I spoke with Bruce earlier today. I shot him a text a week or two ago and unusually didn't hear back from Bruce. He's pretty responsive. And when I called him, he explained his text wasn't working on his phone correctly. And so he's planning on visiting you on Thursday, Mrs. Burgess, and I'll call you tomorrow and we can set up a time for him to come and just also take a look at your hot water heater to make sure that it is in good working order.
What time? When did you say you're going to schedule an appointment?
Yes, ma'am. I'll call tomorrow and
call
schedule a
tomorrow,
time
okay.
for Thursday.
All right, so this is actually an agenda item that should be voted on by the select board. And I guess the determination would be, do we want the town to take the lead or do we want DOT to take the lead?
Suggest the town take the lead.
Any other opinions? Barbara's nodding.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, the town might as well take the lead if we're going to install the appliances, so.
Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Erna, do you have anything to weigh in on that?
Well, is this a common problem for other homeowners in that triangle, or do we know? Or
As far as I'm aware, Ernie, Mrs. Burgess is the only one who has raised this concern, but it is something that Dwight Dowdy has mentioned before, the corroding impact of this on appliances. And so it's not a surprise at all that we're dealing with this now.
sure. Well, I'm in favor of doing this for Mrs. Burgess, but I guess I'm wondering, once we start the ball rolling on doing this for this neighbor, we might wind up doing it for everyone in the triangle. Now, if all of their appliances are corroded by salt, well, I guess, that's the path we have to follow, but I'm just curious, that's all.
You're right, that is a possibility, most definitely.
Sure.
And I will say, when I spoke with the DOT about this, they said their MO on dealing with this sort of things is they will ask an appliance vendor for a list of comparable replacements. So, we would inventory the appliances in the home and give a list to a vendor and get a list of comparable replacements and the cost that would be associated with that.
Sure.
All right. Ricky?
Just to answer Ernie's question on that, I believe that other people in that area have already bought appliances because they failed in the past. So they did it on their own. I think it was just 1 or 2 things that might have been messed up and they bought their own. This isn't the first time we've heard about it.
Sure, I didn't think so.
Thank you.
All right, so I will take a motion on the town of Belgrade. Moving forward with the town plumber, Bruce Galush, Bob the plumber, meeting with Mrs. Burgess to do an inventory of her appliances. We'll get that to a vendor, get some prices for comparable appliances and schedule the installation of those and then invoice DOT for 50%.
I'll make that motion as long as we're going to check with more than one vendor.
Yes, sir, we absolutely will.
I'll second the motion.
Just
Right.
bear in mind, it may be a while to get some of those appliances. I just replaced a refrigerator at my house and it took a month and a half.
Must have been a big refrigerator. I'm just kidding.
It probably runs on a microchip. Because that's holding everything up. So, Mrs. Burgess, as long as you don't have a smart fridge, you might be okay.
Okay.
I want one of those ones where you walk up and magically you get to see inside what's in there. So not like,
Yeah.
does anything better show up? All right. Is there any more discussion? All right, seeing none. Barbara, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes,
Dan,
Yes.
Ricky?
Yes.
All right, 5-4-0 against.
I will call you ladies tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Burgess, I'm gonna bring my dishes to your house.
Okay.
All right, next up, we have the discussion and consideration of the road commissioner job description and job posting. I will take a motion to open that item.
Good.
Moved and seconded. That item is open for discussion. So at the last meeting, we reviewed the road commissioner job description. And both Jack and Dan brought some stuff to the table that they would like to see incorporated into that description. So you should all have in your packet the updated job description. Does anyone have any questions or concerns? Are they comfortable with what we're putting forth now as a road commissioner job description?
Looks very complete.
like it.
All right, if that's the case, I will take a motion that we accept the road commissioner job description at this point.
So
Yeah.
moved.
Okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor? All right, the job description has been accepted. Next, I would take a motion to post the job description. Anthony, where are we anticipating posting this? Are we doing just MMA? Are we doing the town's website, Indeed? Are there any other ones?
I hadn't really thought about Indeed, but we could do that. I was going to post it on the town's website, of course, on our Facebook page, on the Maine Municipal Association website, and then we would also advertise it on the town marquee as well.
How does everyone feel about including Indeed? I think in the past we did, and then we maybe have gotten away from it a little bit.
I'm all for it. I've looked there.
Okay. All right, and then the closing date on that, Anthony, am I correct? It's May, no, you'd bring it forth to May 18th. So once it's posted, we'll accept applications for 2 weeks.
Yes, ma'am. I'll post it tomorrow and then just 2 weeks from tomorrow,
And,
which would be May the 5th.
okay, and then the roads committee, are they scheduled to meet after May 5th, or will they have a special meeting to review the applications?
I would think we would have a special meeting, and one question that I had about the interview process is whether or not a member of the select board would like to be involved with that.
I offered the last meeting that I would work.
Yeah, Ricky did say that he would do that.
All right, we'll do.
Melanie, what are we doing? We're gonna have the roads committee review all the applicants and then select a few to be interviewed. But the interview process should be one person from the roads committee, one person from the select board, possibly the town manager, and another person, but it should be the whole roads committee.
We would probably just do a recommendation and then we would decide on who gets the job.
So the road committee would review the applications, bring their recommendation to the select board, and then the select board would do this, we'd put together a panel at that point for the interviews. Is that what you're saying, Rick?
Yes.
Okay.
Really thought a lot about it, but I think that's probably the best way to do it. We'll let the road committee go through the application, see who they pick. If they pick more than one, then it comes to us and we decide which one gets it.
Okay, so the select board, so the applications wouldn't come in until the 5th. The board meets on the 4th and the 18th. So then we wouldn't select the road commissioner until after the 18th, because then from the 18th, we would take that recommendation, start the interview process. When could we anticipate, do you think, by the June 1st select board meeting, would we have a road commissioner chosen, do we think?
I would certainly hope so.
Why wouldn't we do a special meeting for this? Kind of like what we do for any job that's open that we control. Have a meeting in between, you know, before the 18th. We could,
I'd recommend having the interview process in between, and then
Right.
we select, you know, we approve, you know, the appointment on the 18th.
that would work.
So the roads committee then, Dan, wouldn't have a chance to come to the board with their recommendation. If the applications don't close until May 5th, which is the day after our next meeting, then we could possibly convene for a short meeting to,
Oh, what I'd do, Melanie, is I wouldn't bring it to the board until we're ready to appoint after the interview process.
Okay.
Roads committee picks out one or two people. Then we set who's gonna go do the interview. Somebody from the roads committee and the number of people. They can determine that and then come to the board on the 18th and say, this is who we interview.
okay. Does that seem comfortable? Yeah, because who we're choosing to interview doesn't have to come before the select board. Who we appoint does.
Right. Right. I think that sounds like a good process.
All right, so. Dan, you want to make that motion?
Well, I'll make that motion, but we need to decide just who's gonna be on the interview committee, because that should be part of the motion.
Okay, so we have Rick, and should we have the chair of the roads committee? Or who is the chair of the roads committee?
Well, the roads committee, the town manager actually chairs those committees, but I would say that Jack has been probably our most active road committee member, and I think he would be a good choice to represent the road committee.
Jack, I was just assuming you were chair. Okay.
He's the chairman emeritus.
All right,
I would suggest, you know, Jack, Ricky, Anthony, and
Yeah.
maybe somebody from the fire department, because they're gonna have to work with this road commissioner when we have storms and things like that. So, you know, either Travis or
Dan did a good job when we was looking for the maintenance director. So I
Yeah.
think I would recommend Dan.
Yeah,
and if Dan's unavailable, because do we want to
Travis or
back up for
somebody.
that?
With Travis, I guess.
Travis.
Yeah,
Travis or Scott, or, you know, just whoever we can get, somebody, you know, from the fire department, I would recommend.
Right. I mean, they could decide who it is based on availability.
Okay, so we'll incorporate that into your motion, Dan.
and I'll second it.
All right, and I have no doubt we'll put that together really nicely. All right, all those in favor of that motion? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right,
Jack set his hand up now.
what's that?
Jack has his hand up.
Oh, Jack.
While we're on the roads, and since my name came up, in the job description, it refers to the road commissioner being responsible for bridges. Is the road commissioner actually responsible for bridges? I thought the state was responsible for all bridges over 20 feet, but I may be wrong.
Do we have any town, do we have any roads in town that's got a bridge? They're all state roads, it's got the bridges, I believe.
That's what I think too.
I think so too as well.
So I think to have it bridges in the road commissioner's job description is questionable.
That's in the statute that Dan brought to us 2 weeks ago.
So maybe we keep that in there, Jack, in case we ever build a bridge in Belgrade.
Well, as long as there's no confusion about who's responsible if there's a problem on a bridge.
I need that one over the lake on my front lawn.
Like, you gotta remember that the select board's the one that's gonna direct somebody to work on a bridge anyway, ultimately. And if we don't have any bridges, you don't have to worry about that.
We got a bridge to sell you, though. All right. Moving right along, new business, committee appointments. First up, we have Ted Fontaine for the Dams Committee. I was like, well, Ted, you were just there. Where'd you go? And then you popped
Right
up
here.
there. Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. I'm sorry I couldn't get into the meeting last time.
I've tried that excuse too.
No, I'm telling you. Technical difficulties.
All right, I'll take a motion to open the item for committee appointments. I skipped that part, sorry.
I'll make that motion.
And Barbara just seconded. All right, so Ted, you're back in the hot seat.
Okay.
And we do like when it's your first appointment that folks do meet with the board, because we do like to express our appreciation for folks being willing to step up. We know everybody has busy lives, and without all the volunteers we have, the town could not run nearly as well as it does. So I will take a motion on Ted's appointment.
Albeit,
Committee moved, and is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Is there any more discussion? Seeing none, not even too bad of a hot seat, Ted.
That was quick.
All right, Dan, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Barbara? Oh, you're muted, Barbara.
Sorry, yes.
Rick,
yes.
Ernie?
Yes,
All right, 5 yeses, no nos. Welcome aboard.
Thank you.
thank you.
And as you heard from Gary, you got your work cut out for you.
Oh, I've already been to a few meetings. I can see what's going on.
I was like, what was that? Wasn't even my house. All right, next up, we have Corey Alexander for the Board of Appeals. Is Corey here this evening?
Right here, I see his name.
Yeah,
on it.
he is here. So that's like he was the one at a ball game or something.
Lacrosse game.
There you are, Corey. Lacrosse game. All right, I'll take a motion to open.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Corey's application is open for discussion.
Make a motion, we accept it.
And is there a second?
I'll second. I just have a question. Is it, he says roads committee other, is it for the Board of Appeals and the roads committee or just?
That's correct, Ernie.
Okay, good.
I'm sorry, I went right to the roads committee. Corey, are you looking to be on 2 boards?
Yep, both of them.
Okay. And we have an opening on both boards.
We do.
Okay. So I think we should still split them. So Ricky, is your first one for the roads committee?
It must be.
Okay. And the second on that one. So all those in favor of Corey's appointment to the roads committee? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, I'll take a motion for Corey's appointment to the Board of Appeals.
I'll do that.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome aboard and aboard.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thank you.
very welcome. Thank you.
You want me to turn the camera around so you guys can watch the game too?
That would be
What
entertaining.
about that?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good night, Corey. All right, next up, I'd take a motion to open for the appointment of Scott Ferguson for the Library Board of Trustees.
Make that motion.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That item is open for discussion. So, and Scott, I want to be sure that I'm correct here, that are you applying for 2 positions, one as a library trustee and one on the budget committee?
So Melanie, Scott originally applied for the budget committee. We don't have any openings currently on the budget committee. And so we asked him if he would consider serving on another board, and the library board seemed a good fit.
Okay. I was with that block there. I thought it was like a check mark. Like, ta-da, this one too. Okay, there's no more discussion. I will take a motion.
Be it.
Second,
And Barbara, were you motioning? You might just unmute yourself for the whole meeting.
All right, sorry.
But that's okay.
There was some noise in the kitchen, so.
Ah, that's the dog. All right, so moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome aboard the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Scott.
thanks, Scott.
Okay, next up, we have Charlotte, is it Saxel? Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
take a motion to open that.
I'll make that motion.
Moved and seconded. And Charlotte, I apologize. I don't have anything checked off on my application for you.
Oh, I'm applying to be the youth representative for the Library Board of Trustees.
Okay. And is there any discussion?
I would strongly urge that we accept Charlotte. She started up a library, a reading group at her school, and clearly loves books and is committed to the library.
Perfect. Thank you. All right, if there's no more discussion, I will take a motion to accept that.
So moved.
And seconded by Barbara. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Welcome aboard, Charlotte.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for being willing to do that. All right, the last one is from Michael Hano for the Board of Appeals. I will take a motion to open that
So moved.
and seconded by Barbara. All right, moved and seconded. This is open for discussion.
You on here?
No, I don't see him.
See,
He is not, since he's a reappointment, he opted not to come.
we might want to, just as a point of clarification, when we do submit these, if we can circle if it's a new or a reappointment, just so we can follow all through and know all of that. So it does say reappointment on the agenda, but when they do the applications, it's not a bad practice. Maybe a new checkbox or something.
I'll make a motion, we accept him.
Is there a second?
Second,
Moved and seconded. All right, all those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, Michael's back. All right, next up, we have a discussion of the RSU 18 proposed 21-22 budget with Superintendent Carl Gartley. I will take a motion to open that item.
So be it.
second,
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Carl, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everybody. I will, and I know you have a busy agenda, and Anthony gave me some time restraints, so I will go be fairly short, and then I think there are some questions, and we'll let that guide the conversation. Our budget, the board has adopted a budget. It is up 1.7%, which is roughly $682,000. About 150,000 of that is health insurance increases. About $400,000 of that is salary increases. Our overall salaries are approximately 22 million, so that's just under 2% increase in salaries. That leaves about 130-ish thousand for other increases. I have looked at other districts in the area. I looked at the 10 closest, Gardner, Mount Blue, Fairfield, Waterville, Winslow, Vassalboro, or all the surrounding towns. Our cost per student remains one of the lowest in the area. In Central Maine, we're the third lowest currently. Academically, we're one of the highest in the area, both in math and reading. So we try very, very hard to keep our budgets reasonable and low. I know everybody wants low budgets, and we continue to be one of the lowest around. Unfortunately, 2 out of the last 3 years, we have received less money from the state. This year, we received $280,000 less than we did the previous year. That makes it challenging when we receive less money, because things do go up in price. Salaries go up, health insurance goes up, cost of items go up. But to be able to keep it to a 1.7% increase with $280,000 less subsidy, I think was extremely reasonable. I think at this point I'll pause and open it for questions, and I can come back and do more. We'll see how the conversation goes. Put my glasses back on so I can see here.
All right, is there anyone who has questions for Carl? Rick?
Al, did any of the COVID money help you guys as far as in wages and supplies that you had to buy?
Yep. Hey, Ricky, how you doing? Good question. Yeah, the COVID money is interesting money. It's unique in that we can't use it to pay things that are in the normal budget. They audit our budget, and if something was in the regular budget last year, we can't pay it with COVID money. That we have to sign off that this is money, that we're not going to use this money to do that, or we don't get it. This money was used for, we hired about 50 extra employees this year. We used a lot on that, lots and lots of PPE. Where a lot of facilities improvement with ventilation, windows, spacing, etc. It will help us a little bit. The fact is it has helped us when we ever had problems to solve. Rick, we needed a couple more buses to spread people out, kids out a little bit more. Obviously, that wasn't in our budget, so it was allowed to do, and that will help us some this year, some next year, because those are a couple buses we won't have to buy. So yes, it will help us short term and long term, but we had to be very careful not to pay wages and stuff like that. Substitutes, COVID, some extra COVID personnel to keep class sizes down. We did pay wages for those, but those are additional employees.
Carl, how are we doing as far as bus drivers? We've added.
Yeah, that's a good question. Bus drivers remains, well, I'd say a challenge for us, for all the other schools in the area, for the state, for the country. Bus drivers is a challenge. We have enough right now, but no extra. Especially when it comes to like after school activities, we may have to wait for our regular runs to end to be able to run some of the extracurricular bus runs, because we're just tight on drivers. We have offered, to do training, to pay people for their time to do training. It's just it's a challenging position to fill.
Does anyone else have questions for Mr. Gartley?
There's been, the question I did get today was around, population. This has been a challenging year for data in a lot of ways. Population obviously being one of them. If I look at the last few years, and every town was very similar trends. I'll specifically speak to Belgrade. If you look at the last 3 years, a decrease of 7 students, 9 students, 6 students for FY21. Those are the last 3 years, 2019 and 18. Last 3 years, if I look at this year, I was planning on, based on the population studies and all the other indicators, a very similar trend of continuing a slow decrease. The decrease was larger. The difference between what I expected in decrease and what it was in decrease is very, very close to the number of students that I expected went to homeschooling as opposed to registering in our public schools due to the pandemic. some of which said they didn't feel comfortable coming into school, some of which did not like the requirements of, the masks and other mandates that we had to put in place to open our schools. We have been open all year, 5 days a week for students. We have offered 5 days a week in person and 5 days a week or 5 days a week remote. Being open full time has been a challenging year, but we have done it. So looking at the numbers of students that switched to homeschooling that did not register, that presents challenges in trying to figure out what to do with the budget for next year. I fully expect those students to come back. But I think a lot of it depends on what happens in the next few months with COVID. So that one, unfortunately, there's going to have to be more to come, and I can update you monthly on that if you'd like, or at least chat with Anthony, which we do from time to time anyway.
Okay, Jean?
I'm not looking for a lot of history, but a little bit. When we were going through the COVID and the schools were closed, we must have had some sort of surplus because our heating bills would have been lower, the electrical lower, busing lower. And I was wondering about that surplus that would have been created, where that is, where that went.
Good question. Good question, Gene. Yeah, we did save some money last year. I mean, our schools, our buildings were closed, but the teachers kept working, the ed techs kept working, the drivers kept working. Again, salaries and benefits of what last year was around a $39 million budget, salaries and benefits are 30 million of that. So those didn't change. Yes, in the spring, obviously not a lot of heating savings, but we saved probably in the neighborhood of at least $250,000. Every single year, we cannot spend more than our budget. Whatever our budget is, we cannot go over that. That's statute. So we always will have some money left over. And how that works is at the end of every year, we have to decide what to do with that money. And I make a recommendation to the board. And typically the guidance from boards, towns, the three things that we do with the money that would be encouraged to do is 1, pay down debt. 2, put money, into our, fund balance to carry forward to save taxpayers money, and then build up reserve accounts, both committed and, designated and undesignated. At the end of last year, that $250,000 we put in our fund balance. Usually we can only have 3% carry fund balance, undesignated fund balance. That law is waived right now, and we can have more. At the end of FY20, so at the end of last year, our undesignated fund balance, it went up to 1.368, 1.2 roughly would be 3%. So we have, between 150 and 200,000 more than the 3%. And that's where we put that $250,000. I did not want to spend it yet. This year, going into FY22, we have taken $600,000 of our undesignated fund, and we're using that towards so that we don't have to raise that money, through taxpayers. So we are committing 600,000 of our fund balance back to taxpayers. We will have more. Yep. I don't know what that is. We're going to have a little more than that at the end of this year, between what we had left over last year and this year. My goal is to pay down, we still owe $364,000 in nutrition debt. Our goal has been for several years, so we have 2 more years to pay that off, was what we set for a goal. So we're going to pay some towards that. And back several years ago, many of you remember, we went out for a facilities improvement bond, and part of that process was us getting very clear messages that we needed to have facilities reserve accounts. So the taxpayers have approved us for facilities reserve accounts, and we hope to put some money into that as well. So those are the things we do when we don't spend all of our money. Those are the things that I think make us a financial stable institution. I think that it's irresponsible not to have reserve accounts. It's irresponsible not to have a good fund balance. I think 3% is low. 3% barely covers one of my payrolls. A payroll is about $900,000. 3%. But last year we only had 2.5%. Last year we only had 923,000 of unassigned fund balance, which barely, I mean, like to the dollar covered a payroll. That's not a healthy institution. There's actually a bill in front of the legislature right now to increase that permanently. So I know that was a long answer, but the three things we're doing with it are we give it back to taxpayers, we build our reserve accounts, and we pay down debt. Those are the three things we do with the money. And I think anybody could make an argument that any one of the three is the most important. They're all important. Nobody would be right, nobody would be wrong. But those are the three things we do with the money, Gene.
Okay, and thank you. And
no problem.
You had sent an email today regarding money back or to towns. I read it quickly, and was that something that was in there? That there was money?
That was the $600,000 when I build a budget, say our budget's $40 million. I have to have, that's our expenditure side. I have to figure out how I'm going to come up with $40 million in revenue. I take what the state gives us. I take what taxpayers are going to give us. And I, this year took $600,000 from our fund balance that I am I'm not going to bill to taxpayers. We're going to use from our fund balance. So that's what that was about.
Okay.
Oh, okay. All right.
Dan,
Thank you.
you're welcome. Dan?
Yeah, I was just looking through my emails. Did we get a copy of that budget? Because I can't seem to find it in 500 emails I got on my devices.
Yeah, I'll send it tomorrow to the select board. It's on our website, but I'll send it specifically to the town of Belgrade Select Board, or I'll send it to Anthony and have him forward it out to you. Make sure you get it.
Thank you. Is that going to include showing capital expenses, building repairs, breaking down salaries, just so we've got a categorized and be able to look at where the money's going?
Yes, we have a consolidated version that is sort of condenses it. The detailed version is unfortunately very, very detailed. I mean, the state tells us how we have to report our budget. So it is a very complicated document. If there's more specific questions, it might be easier to, you can send me questions and I can answer them. I will send you all the documents that I have, and just depends on how much time you want to dig into it.
Well, in years past, I think Dan probably remembers, we used to get that detailed report. And then that was the one that we would take to the governance meeting. And take to the public budget hearing.
Right. That's on our website, but I'll email it specifically to you folks.
Okay.
I'd appreciate it, because without looking at it, I can't support something I can't dig down into and see where the money's going.
You got it.
All right, are there any more questions for Mr. Gartley this evening? All right, seeing none. Carla, it looks like you're free.
All right, thank you. You guys have a great evening. It was nice to see you all.
Thank you, Carl. You as well.
Anybody, and again, feel free if anybody wants to talk more or specific questions. I am more than happy to meet or chat sometime. Take care.
I have to say, Carl, this was the first year that I've been on the board that I haven't been at the governance meeting. And I don't know if we didn't get noticed as early as we normally do, because of course we weren't meeting in person, but I didn't get anything until like that day. And I was like, I can't make that happen. We usually get like, a month or two in advance and a reminder. And I was like, oh, I can't make that.
I will be glad. Well, I will be glad when a lot of things are changing back to normal, but yes, It'll be nice to be able to get together with everybody again. Take
All right.
care.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right, next up, we have the discussion and consideration of agreements with the Friends of the Belgrade Public Library. We're actually going to split those out into 2 agenda items because they should be separate votes. So I'll take a motion to open the first agenda item, which is the discussion from the library board for year-round book sales at the library. So I'll
Make that
take
motion.
moved in. Is there a second?
Second.
Second? Okay, that's now open for discussion.
Anthony, are you going to talk or do you want us to? Or Megan?
Well, I mean, honestly, this is one of those points where Anthony's not on the library board of trustees. There are folks here and a librarian who are, and that's usually who brings the recommendation to the board. So I would open the floor up for that.
Yeah.
So Megan, do you want to take the lead on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to talk on it. Can you guys hear me all right?
We can.
Perfect. I think a year-round book sale in the library would be a really great thing for us. As Anthony pointed out in his memos, it would help us, it would help the Friends increase their sources of revenue for the maintenance, and it would help hopefully bring in a lot more people into the library.
And I also like the part about helping to alleviate some of the overflow in the
Yes.
village.
Yes, it gets pretty congested in there.
And that also eliminates folks having, now, would you still do the July 4th sale away from there?
Yes.
Or, okay, because I was thinking then those folks wouldn't be trucking it, but never mind. All right, is there any questions, any concerns, any discussion?
Just
Yeah, go ahead, Barbara.
just to clarify that the Friends do the book sale. Linda and Judy are here representing the Friends. So it's the Friends of the library who run the book sale, and with a lot of help, but they run the book sale. And so the book sale that's ongoing in the library would benefit the Friends' maintenance expenses for the building.
Okay.
So that's why the Friends are here and not the trustees bringing this forward.
You're right. Thank you.
Question, Melanie.
Yes.
Why do we even have to approve that? We don't own the building. The Friends are doing it and the Friends are using it to offset the cost of their maintenance. What's it got to do with the town of Belgrade?
So Dan, I brought this forward because the Friends presented us with an agreement. And so it was sort of contractual in nature. And my understanding was that the board needs to approve those contracts. But you're right. There's no cost at all to the town involved with this. We're not committing any sort of expenditures.
And the donated books don't belong to the town at this point. They're donated to the Friends, aren't they?
They are donated to the Friends.
So it really has nothing to do with the town. At least on that bullet point.
Except that it's a town employee. It's a town employee who is overseeing the ongoing sale inside.
Yeah. Cross the T's and dot the I's, or it'll come back to bite us in the hiney.
And then probably what it ought to be is a motion to allow the town employee to sell the books, represent the Friends of the library to sell the books.
Is that your motion, Dan?
Yes.
I'll second that. Now, Linda and Joan, do either of you have anything you want to add?
No, not really.
No, not really. The book sale this summer will be on the lawn of the library like it was last year. Because we'll still be dealing probably with the COVID.
Right.
And that worked out well last year. So we're doing that. I think the reason it all came to the board was because we had some certain questions and stipulations that we wanted Megan to follow. concerning the book sale and but she's going to have a cart and set out a certain number of books.
Okay.
I think as long as we give permission for her to do it, I think that's all it's needed.
All right, so moved and seconded. There's no more discussion. Barbara,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
Ricky,
Yep.
Dan?
Yes.
All right, 5-4-0 against. All right, next up, we have the annual review of the lease for the library building. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So be it.
Second.
Moved and seconded. So now open for discussion.
I lost it off my phone somehow, so I don't have it. Is there any changes? I guess that's the question.
Nope.
I read some of it and then I lost it.
No, it's the same as it was last year. It's the same as it was last year, Rick.
Okay. And it was,
Same thing.
Same as it ever was.
Same thing.
I think that's a song.
Make the
All
motion to
right,
accept it.
seeing
I'll make
no.
a motion. Yep, go ahead.
Oh, okay, so Ricky's making a motion. Is there a second for the approval of the lease?
Second.
Moved and seconded.
I just have, I have a question. Is it, do we have to vote on the lease agreement and then the addendum to the lease agreement, or are they together?
No, all together.
All together.
Okay.
All right, moved and seconded. Well, let's go. Dan,
Yes.
Barbara,
Yes.
Ricky,
Yes.
Ernie,
Yes.
5 yeses. You guys are stuck with us again.
And you've paid your dollar.
And then some.
And then some, yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a good evening. All right, next up, we have the request and consideration, discussion and consideration of a request for qualifications for management of the town's Unified Investment Trust. I'll take a motion to open that item.
So be it.
And a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. That item is open for discussion. Who would like to take the lead on that?
Melanie, I'll talk just briefly about that. So this is based on the RFP that went out the last time that we hired an investment firm to manage the town's investments. Although we did make some tweaks to it, obviously to allow for the investment firms and not just financial institutions. We would plan on, again, tomorrow posting this and distributing it to investment firms and financial institutions along with the newly adopted investment policy for the Unified Investment Trust. This has been, the RFQ has been reviewed by the Budget Committee. And again, you know, I thought maybe the Budget Committee could interview the finalist or finalists as it may be. But again, if a member of the Select Board would like to be part of that process, we'd be happy to have you guys join in on that and hopefully return with a recommendation to you on either the last meeting in May or the first meeting in June.
Ernie?
I'll volunteer to be on that board or that meeting.
Okay, and then we would do the same. How many members of the Budget Committee would we want? Or do we want the whole Budget Committee?
It says here the finalists would be interviewed by the Budget Committee, and there would just be a Select Board member to participate in it. Does that make
What I
sense?
would do is I'd ask the Budget Committee if they wanted to have all of them. They may decide to only have 3 of them or something, because I mean, it's going to be hard for them all to get together.
Okay.
I think we're gonna have to go by what Tom says. I mean, we're not in the financial business, and Tom is, and we're gonna have to really go by his recommendation, I would think.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ricky. I certainly want Tom involved in the interview process because I think he's our resident expert when it comes to these sort of matters. No pressure, Tom.
Tom, press your space bar. Nope, again.
That's just a good excuse so you don't have him talk to us tonight. That's all it is.
If you go to the upper right-hand corner, Tom, can you unmute yourself? There we go. Oh, just kidding.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me. No, I'm more than glad to go through the applications and narrow it down to the lead folks. And then, of course, get feedback as well from the select persons, as well as the town manager. But I think hopefully we'll get some good firms basically looking to manage the funds.
Perfect.
Great.
All right, do we have a time frame on how long you would put out the request for qualifications? I know we're saying the 18th meeting. Are we looking at 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4? Well,
Yeah,
not
I think
at this point.
2 weeks would be adequate.
And where would this be advertised as well?
We would. So we would advertise this on, of course, the town website and on, and you guys know we created a new RFP page for these sort of proposals. So, the town website, the MMA website, and then we will send this to all of the financial institutions that are in the area, and then investment firms that are also in the area.
Do we have something already set up, like a cover letter, or is that going to take some time and we should look at the 2 weeks being from, say, Friday or Monday?
You know, it's usually pretty simple. The RFQ can just go out. I don't know that it needs to have a cover letter on it because the beginning of that sort of serves as a cover letter, the first 2 or 3 paragraphs. So I think, again, you know, but if you guys wanted to allow for 3 weeks, then that, you know, that would be fine with me. Tom, do you think 2 versus 3 weeks is one better than the other?
Tom, do you just want to put up 2 fingers or 3? 3.
Oh, 3.
Tom votes for
Okay.
3.
There we go. Non-verbal communication.
So I was like, hey, we got this. All right. So I will take a motion that we put forward this request for qualifications for a 3-week time period, with the applications being reviewed by members of the budget committee and 1 select board member with the recommendations to come back to the board at either the May 18th or the June 4th, June 1st meeting.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All right, Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
Dan?
Yes.
Barbara?
Yes.
All right, 5-4-0 against. Next up, we have the warrant. We'll take a motion to open that item.
Hey, Melanie, we actually have the item on the moratorium ordinance.
Oh, whoops, yes, we do. Sorry. Underneath my last little stack here. Hold on a moment. Usually I crisscross my papers, but I didn't crisscross this one properly. Now, do we have, sorry, I'm just going to preface this. Do we have a copy of the law that gives the select board the authority to extend the moratorium that was approved by the voters?
I did not include a copy of that law, but I did go back and research it and found that is in fact the case.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to open that agenda item.
I'll make that.
Moved and a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. It's open for discussion. So Anthony, do you want to lead this or do we
I
want
do.
Peter
Yeah.
to lead?
Well, and I asked Peter to be here so that he can sort of update you on the board's work, but the moratorium ordinance is set to expire May 5th. And as you will recall, this covers our subdivision ordinance and our commercial development review ordinance as it relates to solar farms, wind farms, and cell towers. And so I will say that the planning board has been dutifully addressing this at least once a month, an hour a month during their meetings. And it's just a beast of an ordinance. And you have to keep in mind that it hasn't been updated, or it was originally adopted in 1988. So it's pretty old and needed a lot of updates. I had an opportunity today to talk with the planner from the Kennebec Valley Council of Governments that the board is working with on the rewrite. And he thinks that the planning board may only need one more meeting in order to finish its work. And so we've scheduled for him to come back to the board on May the 20th. Just so you know, once the board has finished its work, I'm going to ask Peter and maybe some of the other board members and the planner to come and tell you about the major changes that they're making and hit the high points of it. Once the select board is comfortable with that, then we'll submit it to the town attorney for a legal review of the ordinance, just to ensure that it is in keeping with state statutes. So having said all that, I don't know if Peter wants to weigh in or if you might have questions for him on how those planning board's work is going.
First of all, good evening, everybody. It's good to see people, that's for sure. It would be nice to be in person, but this is good too. So the planning board has been working very diligently with the planner from KV Cog, and I do believe we have made some really good progress. It is my hope, sincere hope, that after this May 20th meeting, we'll be able to bring things to conclusion and then go through the formal processes of presenting information to you and then getting it in front of the town voters. So I feel very good about it. And I believe in the work that the planning board has done in concert with the planner from KV Cog has been really helpful. So. I know, it's exciting. I know.
Well, and my brain was just going to, what's the time frame we would have then to get this to the voters? So if the board agrees to an extension on the moratorium, because originally the 180 days we thought would give us enough time to have that done and be able to give it to the voters in June. But we're not at that point. So are we looking at March of 2022?
Melanie, I think we probably want to go a little earlier than that, because once the ordinances are ready, and let's say you guys set a specific time frame for the work to be completed and the moratorium ends, then we want something in place that's going to bridge that gap between what we have now and what we'll have moving forward. When I've talked with the KV Cog planner, he says that he does not believe that the work on the commercial development review ordinance is going to be such a heavy lift. And keep in mind, that's because we're really just addressing within that ordinance the decommissioning of those structures, whether they're solar arrays or wind turbines or cell towers. And so it's a very sort of niche micro focus that we're going to take whenever we look at that ordinance and what we need to do to update that.
So herein lies the issue. if we try to get it before the taxpayers, before March of 2022, that involves calling a special town meeting, which means a minute number of the town may be participating. And that by itself poses a problem.
Dan, I'm just curious, are you aware of any state election dates that are coming up?
Well, I mean, if we have bonding, you could be having bonding, state bonding ballots in November. But I'm not convinced that you're going to see any bonding go through this year because of the infighting going on in the state right now. I do know there's some other laws or LDs that are being presented right now that may or may not affect a lot of these solar and wind farms. I know the state's talking about a moratorium on at least the solar farms because of the issues CMP's been having with them. So they're talking about putting a hold to any state projects or state authorization. I know there's another LD that's going through that somebody's trying to push through that says all of the parts for wind farms and solar farms have to be 100% recyclable. So there could be some interesting things. I don't know if they'll pass or not.
So what does the rest of the board think about that? I mean, I understand if we need to issue a continuance on the moratorium, and if that's within our legal rights to do so. And simply, I hesitate there just a little bit because normally anything else that's decided by a vote of the people, if there's any change to that, it has to be voted by the legislative body, which is the voters. So Anthony says that we're within our rights to do that. But what is the rest of the board's thoughts with a special town meeting, turnout?
I'd recommend continuing the moratorium. We can try to plan on having a vote this fall if we have a state ballot that comes out. If not, we may have to call a special town meeting. But the thing is, I think because we do it all as a secret ballot, you're not talking a ton of money for something like that.
And also the turnouts for the secret ballot have been higher. So, if since people can vote over the course of 30 days at the town office, if we're able to continue that, there could be, a better turnout than we might expect.
My point is, so if this is extended, by my calculations, that brings it to November. I mean, if the planning board has its work done by then, I mean, couldn't there be an ordinance voted on by the town in November? I don't know. Or is that pie in the sky?
We don't have to extend it for a full 180 days. Do you think 90 days, Peter?
I would.
You would?
I would, Melanie.
Yeah.
That way you can try to take advantage if we have a statewide election.
Okay.
Would fall in line with it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Because otherwise we have to wait until March, which can be done as well. But and if the moratorium goes till November, we're at the end of building season anyway, in general, for anybody that wants to, have a work done on a subdivision, what have you. So it's, we're basically into 2022 anyway. But
No, that is, so of course, we're not accepting applications for subdivisions. So then there are folks that have been waiting at this point. How many, Peter, do you feel like how many applications do you think would be held up until 2022? with an extension.
I don't know the exact number. I'm sure there would be some. Anthony, do you have an idea? I might be just waiting.
Yeah, so we have one developer in town who is pretty aggressively developing town, not only looking to do that here in Belgrade, but in other neighboring communities. So I think he would likely have at least one project in Belgrade.
Anthony, can I jump in for a second?
Please
Yes.
do, Gary.
Hi, Gary. I didn't see you there.
Hi, hey. I have that one application for subdivision down to Camp Bombazine. And I believe that's the only one we have. Tyler Evans was actually got his application in before the moratorium. So I think we're gonna examine that in June. So there's only one more that I know of.
But Gary, the one related to Bombazine, isn't that that sale did not go through for that property? Is that the group that you and I met with once before?
It is, yes. It didn't go
Okay.
through.
It did not. It did not. The financing fell through. So that's one that we don't have to worry about right now.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. But that
They're also
was the
still looking at some legal issues now.
Right, because the Attorney General is thrown down. Okay, well, that makes me feel better that there aren't 10 developers waiting in the wings and.
No.
And you know, sort of the irony is there hasn't been a subdivision developed in Belgrade in quite a long time, but with the way the housing market is going, there's very much a heightened interest right now.
Mm-hmm.
So Gary, do you think 180 days sounds doable?
Yes, I do. I do. And that takes you till what, November sometime? I think that's fine.
Yep.
Okay. All right, I will make the motion that the select board extend the moratorium for an additional 180 days to coincide with the end date of the previously accepted moratorium.
I'll second that motion.
All right, any further discussion? Seeing none. Barbara?
Yes.
Ricky?
I don't like this. We're telling people what they can do with the land again. They pay friggin' taxes on it. I don't like it. I'm gonna vote no.
Okay, Dan? Ernie?
Yes.
All right, 4 for, 1 against. All right, thank you for being here, Peter.
Welcome. Thanks, and have a good night.
You as well.
Thank you, Peter. I'm not upset at you. I'm just upset at the system.
No, I understand, Ricky. I got you.
I know, but I don't want people buying the land by me and throwing in, their own
And you
land.
should- all you gotta do is buy it. That's what I tell people. If you don't like what's gonna be there, buy it.
All right, next up, we have the warrant. I'll take a motion to open that.
So moved.
So be it.
Moved and seconded. Anthony, would you do the honors?
Yes, this is warrant number 44 in the amount of $59,279.72.
I'll make that motion. Oh, actually, yeah. I opened it. It's open for discussion. We're there. I was wondering, on page 1, we have $257.58 for the town office shredder. And that is on page 1. And then, hold on a moment.
I know where you're going. There was an $80 charge for shredding services.
Yeah, shredding on
Yes.
site.
So the shredder is just for single documents that are sort of daily things that might have confidential information on it. The on-site shredding comes twice a year, and those are for files. Those are for larger files that are outdated that we no longer have to keep under the law, under the Open Records Act. And so we put those into a big, large container, and they come once a year twice a year to bring a shredding truck and shred those documents. So it's just the difference between something that is done on a daily basis versus something that's done on a much larger scale a couple of times a year.
So the first one, did we purchase a new shredder for the town office?
We had it, yeah, we had a shredder, and it just stopped working. It was pretty old too, and so we just replaced that shredder.
We just put a shredder in over at the transfer station or something?
We did, but again, this is we would have to cart stuff over there. These are things that we're just getting rid of sort of on the fly. And the reason that we still have the on-site shredding is because, again, you're talking about a large volume of documents that are all being shredded at one time versus, trying to transport all those documents over to the recycling center.
The whole purpose of having the shredder over at the transfer station.
All right, I was hoping to save us 300 and something bucks by shredding it at the transfer station.
Bruce, do you want to talk to that for a moment, or why the shredder at the transfer station was?
I kind of thought that, that was part of a reason to do it, so we could do the town documents, so we wouldn't have that expense. I thought, that was part of how he was going to pay for it.
Well, so I guess that we could stop using shredding on site and now the stuff that we shred in the office, we do bag that up and we do recycle that. The on-site shredding, I guess, we could try to transport those documents over there and run them through the shredder if everyone's comfortable with that.
Yeah. So Barbara.
I would think it's a question of the burden on the staff, and also what's involved in storing the documents that you would shred on a daily basis. What's the advantage of saving them and having someone then have to take them over to the transfer station? Is that the best use of the staff person's time?
And the confidentiality, can we be certain that if we're taking documents from the town office to the transfer station, that confidentiality is upheld?
It'd be no different than us shredding confidential files for residents. I mean, it's no different. It's the same thing. The day-to-day shredding would be still done at the town office, I would assume, with the town office shredder, correct, Anthony?
Yeah, I think the difference there, Bruce, might be that when citizens bring their private records in, they typically stand there and watch them being shredded. Whereas if we're taking documents over from the town office, let's say, we have your old tax records or something, and we send those over there to the transfer station. Well, I don't know that we would have a staff member stand there and be watching it. We certainly wouldn't have the taxpayer whose records are being shredded standing there watching it.
Problem is, if you don't have somebody over there at the transfer stations in charge that you can trust, then we got a problem.
Well, I definitely
trust it's a town employee.
No, I'm not saying that anyone is untrustworthy. We don't trust them.
I'm not either. I'm just saying that.
Yeah, I'm just saying that there is a bit of a difference in that when I take my personal documents over there, I can stand there and watch them being shredded. Whereas if the town office takes my tax records over there, I'm not standing there watching them being shredded. And while you and I may not feel uncomfortable about that, somebody might.
How much of the larger amounts would you generate in 1 to 2 weeks? A couple paper boxes full?
Golly, I'm not the one who's typically sticking those things into that bin, Dan. So I really couldn't answer that question. I mean, all I know is it's a large bin.
What I'm getting at is, shredding on site. How often? How long have you been gathering records to have them come do that?
6 months.
So what I'm getting at is somebody going over to the transfer station, even if Mary or somebody's taking some trash over, or whoever's taking the trash over, send over 1 box a week and stand there and watch it go through the machine. You can't take more than a minute or two.
Yeah, of course, keep in mind, the on-site shredding cost us $80 to do that. So it's a pretty minimal cost as well.
Yeah, but
Exactly what I was gonna say.
The whole point of getting that shredder was to shred documents. If we're not gonna do it, then we shouldn't bother with it.
Hear where you're going with this, but here we are arguing over $80, and we just told people they can't do anything with their land for 180 days. This is what upsets me.
That's the only thing, Rick. Well, and I guess I'm picturing shredding on site comes to O'Connor's. They come once a week. And what we have is the giant trash barrel that you're talking about, we used in the doctor's office. So I'm well aware of that. And we would fill that sucker once a week. But at O'Connor's, they have a lovely little bin that we use, and you slide your papers in. It literally looks like a laundry bag in there. And they come and scoop that laundry bag, from us. There's going to be other ones down at the administrative offices. But if it's 1 laundry bag a week, that could be doable at the shredder if we don't hoard it for 6 months. So if we want to consider something like that, or do we just want to keep the town documents in the town office and have shredding on site come in and do that twice a year? Well, I guess.
Yeah. There's probably a system that the town staff has, and they go through, they have the files dated, and periodically they purge them. So for $160 a year, it seems like that's a system that works. I wouldn't worry about it.
Scott, did you have something?
Yes, I did. I'm the finance director for the Department of Corrections, and we use on-site shredding. The shredder at the transfer station is not a cross-cut shredder. So anybody who actually takes tax documents there, they're out of their minds, because somebody could, you see the movies where they tape it all back together. If you have sensitive documents, you really want a cross-cut shredder. On-site shredding basically takes the bin right out of your office, and it gets shredded right into the truck. We're talking about $300 here, I think, for sensitive documents to me, which is, I'm sorry to say, I can't believe we're spending this much time talking about it, but I don't think, when you start looking at the salaries involved to schlep things over to the transfer station, that it's going to be worth it. I think you should just use on-site shredding and not worry about it. They'll come whenever the bin gets full.
We shouldn't be using the shredder at the transfer station to shred anybody's documents in town, because if it's not the right one, then we're looking at a lawsuit if something happen.
We asked one.
Jean?
I just had a quick suggestion that maybe, I see that truck, many places. I see it often at the schools in Oakland, that potentially we could join, a day with them, or that, maybe Rome needs it also, and we could just do a collaborative effort and just kind of reduce the costs. That's it.
Well, so I didn't want it to be a big discussion. I just was like, can we do this? So, and I wasn't sure what the 257 was. So if we had to purchase a new shredder for the town office, and we replace the old one, okay, I'm comfortable with that response.
Yeah, I just had a question. Bruce, maybe at a future transfer station meeting, we might brainstorm, how we might be able to help with this and the shredder at the transfer station. If there's a way to do it, I'd be willing to help with that in some fashion. So,
Well, if it isn't a crosscut shredder, I don't think we should be.
well, let's look into that and see if there's a way to.
I will check, but I'm pretty sure that was certified for a certified shredder for sensitive document.
Let's just look into it and talk about it, maybe at the next meeting or something, see if there's a way to do it. That would just help the town. So.
All right, does anybody else have anything on the warrant?
I do.
Okay.
I guess, question I got is attorney fees. I brought this up before set budget time. I see we have a large attorney fee again. I was wondering how we're doing on budgetary wise on that, on attorney fees, because I've been seeing it warrant after warrant.
Yeah, I don't have a year-to-date total on that, Bruce. Nick and I go over the budget year-to-date expenses on the first of the month, and I did look at that this past month, and I think we had spent I think for 25% of the year we'd spend about maybe a third of the legal services budget, but don't hold me to that.
I won't. I mean, is it something that maybe you could email to me, Anthony, next time you guys go over that, just so I have that in my head?
Certainly.
And my next concern is do we have a lot more of these attorney fees like this, especially to that one particular item?
It depends on whether or not there are future appeals of a commercial permit that was approved last week.
I just somehow you guys as a board or us as a town, we gotta, I think $35,000 what we budgeted for attorney fees is just outrageous. And are we is this gonna keep going and going? I mean, we just was talking over $300 for a shredder. Well, $35,000 for attorney fees is something we really need to be discussing and figuring out why or what has happened. And I don't understand why we're spending so much money in attorney fees.
Good point.
Duly noted. We'd like to only be paying one attorney's fees and not two different, but I don't know what we do. This is how we agreed to do it, Bruce, was we agreed to keep the original attorney because they had the history with this right from the beginning, even though they switched to a different law firm. So we're now paying that attorney at the fees that are set by that firm and the town attorney from Bernstein Shur. We do try to use MMA whenever possible. I think we've cautioned a lot of times that we need to check with MMA's legal department before we call the town attorney, that they're not friends. They work for the town, and when we call them, we are getting billed handsomely. So we've tried to use Maine Municipal whenever we can, when we need a legal opinion that maybe doesn't involve something that could be potentially litigious. But I was just saying recently, I remember when I first got on the board, I think our attorney budget was $7,500. And when we went up to 15,000, it was huge. We were like, so, all right, does anybody else have anything on this warrant? All right, seeing none. Ricky, what's your pleasure?
Yes.
Dan? Oh, Dan, did you say yes?
Yep.
Okay, Barbara?
Yes.
Ernie?
Yes.
All right, 5-4-0 against. Next up, we have the town manager's report.
Yeah, so just a couple of items here. We talked about inspections a couple of meetings ago. And so as I've talked with a couple of contractors in town, they have suggested that perhaps if they were allowed to do the first inspection on septic systems, which they are allowed to do under the law if they have a DEP certified inspector on their staff. That might help expedite the inspection process, and would free up some of our CEO's time. I talked with Gary about this. He didn't have any concerns about it at the time. I also talked with Rick. He said, there is a potential concern if you have unscrupulous contractors, and we agree just to raise the possibility with you guys and see if it's something that you're at least interested in us researching and exploring a little further, or if it's a non-starter as far as you're concerned.
So just quick question. Do we know of a lot of contractors that have a DEP certified inspector on their staff?
I don't know of any contractors that do. And the couple that I spoke to who mentioned this to me said that if this were, there are two, you said, Rick?
That I know about.
Okay. Just the two that I spoke to said that they don't currently, but if this were a possibility, they would pay to have someone on their staff certified by the DEP to do the initial inspection.
I did do some checking. I had my sisters do some to see if there was any classes available in the near future. Not for this year. They're usually in the spring of the year or fall of the year. If that's what they're going to do, we're definitely going to take the class. But again, I'm not sure how many there is. And it's like I told Anthony, I said, you've got contractors that do a great job. We've got contractors we don't even know that come into town. How do we know?
So Gary, I have a question for you.
Yes.
If the first run of a septic inspection is done not by the code enforcement officer,
Right.
and then you do the second inspection and there's a legal challenge, who pays? Does that come back on the town?
No, I don't think so. All the first inspection is when they scarify where the septic system's going. They might rototill it, or they might use the excavator. And if they're certified, there are towns that say if they're certified, they can waive that first inspection. Okay. I would say most of the contractors in the Belgrade area know exactly what we're looking for and are okay to just continue, and oftentimes, if Ricky called me or Jason called me or Morris Charles or David Stevens, I'd say, I don't need to come look at it. I don't need to come look at it. I'm probably not supposed to do that until the certification is in place. But most contractors are certified.
So Gary, if the contractor comes to you and
Yeah.
says, they give you a drawing of the property and
Yeah,
say,
I
this is
have,
what the well's
I
gonna
have
be.
drawing when I issue the permit.
Okay,
Okay.
so that's what I was gonna ask. So then you issue the permit and then the first inspection would be, then you wouldn't need to go out for the first inspection.
Right. If the town opts to do that. Yes.
Okay.
The thing about it, Melanie, the other thing is, Gary can tell when he comes out to do the inspection out because it's opened up so you can see it. We have a transit right there. He checks it to make sure it's level all the way around. All the piping's good. It's the first part of it is pretty critical. You want to make sure that it's verified so that stuff's going to run where it should be.
Right. It can't be compacted and stuff like that. It's got to be rototilled, or it's got to be fluffed up so that whatever water's in that septic system will actually drain into the earth.
Take it right out and put sand in.
Right.
And you're sure.
Yep.
No contractor wants to go back and do this over again. Cost some money.
That's right. And you know what? It's not me that's going back to fix it. It's you.
So let me ask you this, Rick, just getting back to this question, if there's a class that is open in the spring or next spring, it's a good idea to allow this to go forward. Right? Makes sense.
I would think probably it wouldn't be a bad idea.
Sure.
But again, like Gary says, the contractors he knows, he doesn't have to do that. And I gotta tell you, some other towns require it. Some towns require, they have to come out 4 times. You lost the customer and the contractor, you have to sit there and wait for a guy to come out. So you sit there and wait, he might not come that same day.
Yeah.
Another day, so you go home.
Well, that's why it's good that I live in Belgrade, because I can be there within 24/7.
I've never had to wait for anybody in Belgrade. I can tell you right now.
Nope.
So if we went ahead with this idea of having a DEP certified inspector on a contractor staff, it would just help speed things up a little bit. In general, for the first inspection only, really, right?
Yes, and it's not a DN, it's not an inspector, it's the contractor himself that's licensed.
Sure.
He can scarify the bottom of that septic bed.
Sure.
And call me and say, this is all done.
Yeah.
I'm certified by DEP.
Yeah.
Are we all set to continue? And I can say yes. Yep.
Now, Gary, if that were the case, would you have them send you pictures, like take a picture with their phone, send it to your phone?
They
So
can. Yeah, no, they can. Yes.
But they don't have to.
They don't have to, no. They don't have to. I think it's a good idea and it frees me up a little bit. I mean, if Ricky Dameron's putting a septic system in, I really don't need to run up there 4 times.
So I guess we should go ahead with it. I mean, do we want to make a motion to go ahead with it, or just okay the idea that we're gonna pursue this?
Yeah, well, if you guys are interested in it, what I would prefer to do is bring a proposed policy back to you guys for you to adopt.
Okay.
And that way Gary and I could work on a policy together and see if there are best practices in other communities, and bring some sort of document back with that details how this would work.
Yeah.
I think the other thing about this, and if it doesn't work, you don't have to keep it in. You can take it away. Just quick.
Yeah.
No, and I think that the state of Maine Department of Health and Human Services, I think they have an outline. I'm pretty sure they do.
Could not find anything on it. I looked, well, my sisters looked, because we looked for class and we couldn't find anything, but I'm sure you're right. Probably we didn't look in the right place.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they do. They have a policy that says that first inspections can be waived if the person is certified by the DEP. Then the code enforcement officer can say, I don't need to see it till the second inspection.
Okay, Barbara, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I was just curious, how many inspections are there of this type each year? How much time does this take?
Are you asking me how many septic inspections we do?
Yeah.
We do probably 3 per septic system. And we probably did 80 septic systems last year.
Oh,
So, I mean, it's up there. It's big.
yeah. I had no idea it was that many.
Yep.
I say we work on a policy, have it come back.
Yep. Sounds good.
All right, we'll return to you guys at some point with something. I previously made you aware of a setback violation that Gary and I have been dealing with on the Manchester Road. And after pursuing a couple different avenues, Gary remembered this thing called a no action letter. And this is if the letter is approved by the select board. It simply states that the town is aware of the violation, but has chosen not to take any action on the matter. And then it's filed with the Registry of Deeds, so that at that point, if the owner then sells the land at some future point, this sort of alleviates any issues there may be with the setback violation. Gary and I are both convinced that this would best serve all the parties involved with the least expense, and it's something that we've discussed with the appeals board. We've discussed this option with them, and it's been endorsed by a couple of our appeals board members. If this is something you're interested in considering, what we'd like to do is schedule a hearing on this matter at your May 4th meeting, which is the procedure that a town goes through in issuing a no action letter.
So was this discussed with the whole Board of Appeals, like at one of their meetings, and there's minutes for it? Or was it an individual conversation with members from the Board of Appeals?
So initially, how the tack that this property owner took is she approached the appeals board seeking a variance. And the appeals board encouraged us to pursue an enforcement action instead, because they said that the bar for approving a variance is a very high bar that this case likely would not meet. And so during the course of that, they asked if I would just keep them apprised of what's going on. And I've been doing that through emails, and some of them have responded to the emails. And in fact, I see Dick Bourne is here, and he and I have discussed this on a couple of different occasions. And I think it's fair to say that that Dick thinks that this is the best way to handle this particular situation.
Dick, you want to weigh in?
Basically, there's no way that the Board of Appeals can grant a variance in this particular case. The main municipal guidance and the training indicate that after the fact appeals, well, specifically, I can read it right to you. Normally, an ordinance violation must be resolved through regular code enforcement channels rather than through a variance granted by the Board of Appeals. And in this particular case, if we were to accept the appeal and then try to process it, what would happen is we'd have to forget the fact that there's a violation and consider whether a variance would be issued under those circumstances. Well, if you have to ignore the violation, the problem essentially goes away. And the only thing we could do would be to refer it back to the Board of Select People for enforcement action. I don't want to get into the weeds of the variance issues, but this particular case is really clear cut in that respect. So yeah, there's no way we could issue a variance.
Yeah, and like Dick just said, the enforcement action is going to incur costs, which this particular method, the no action letter, would not.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to do the no action letter. Sounds like the best outcome we're gonna have. It's not cost anybody a lot of money.
Yeah. So what we need to do, Dan, is we need to have a hearing on this, and I would propose that we do that at the beginning of the next meeting.
Yep, that sounds good.
Okay. And also, Mary reminded me today that at our last meeting, the board did not actually approve a motion to set a hearing on the warrant articles that we'll have on June 8th. So if we could get a motion to that effect, that way we'll have that hearing as well at the beginning of that meeting.
What's the date you need?
I'm sorry, Ricky.
What is the date you need?
May 4th.
I'll make that motion then.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor, we'll set the date of May 4th for the public hearing on the warrant articles.
Yeah. And then lastly, I had also emailed you guys about, I think, a remediation on a local property, and the owner is incarcerated, and Gary and I weren't sure how we were going to handle that, and just a miraculous stroke of luck, the owner's church congregation has volunteered to clean up that property. So we're going to be working with that pastor just to ensure that that happens, and hopefully all's well that ends well as far as that situation is concerned.
Now, Gary, we don't have any legal responsibility if the homeowner's congregation is going to go there and clean up the property. Because I know when we cleaned up a property in the past, there were steps we needed to make sure that we followed. Because
Yep.
one of the concerns, of course, is vermin.
Yeah.
And do we have to oversee anything with that? There's quite a volume of stuff that's probably
Yep.
gonna leave there.
There is. The pastor came in and paid his back taxes last week. And I asked him to come in my office for a couple minutes and we chatted a little bit. And I said, listen, I don't want the town to have to go over there and clean his property and put a lien on it. If somebody in your congregation is willing to help him out and clean this dooryard, I think it would be in his favor. So he said, let me talk to some of the people that I associate with and see if we can do that. I am happy to go over there and say, this has to go, this has to go, this has to go. Okay. But he hasn't got back to me. I've got his phone number, so I will call him. He's from Augusta. He's in a congregation up in Rome.
Now, do
And-
we have to have permission from the landowner, even though he's incarcerated? It is still his property.
He was going to go talk to the landowner
Okay.
and explain to him that if we don't clean your property, the town is probably going to do that and put a lien on it. So I will call him this week and see if he's made that contact and see what happened.
And if we should maybe have something in writing.
Yeah, oh
somehow.
yeah, we definitely will. Definitely will.
Yeah, as long as the property owner gives permission, anybody can clean it up as long as they have permission. The least amount the town gets involved, the better.
No, exactly right, Dan. And I told him, I said, listen, we don't want to put a lien on his property. I know he's incarcerated. We just want his property cleaned up. It's a junkyard. It needs to be cleaned up.
And Melanie, I believe he has gave the pastor permission to do that also.
Has he, Bruce?
I believe so, yeah, because he asked me to put his pump back down the well and put the cover back on the well too.
Yeah. Does he have water in that house or does he have a sewer
No.
connection?
Yeah,
Do you-
that inside that house is pretty bad.
No, I know. Do you know when he's gonna get out of jail?
Probably 2 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't be getting into this on this.
No, so Bruce, if we were in contact, and if you're someone who can get something, what the town needs is something in writing that states that he's given permission to members of his congregation to go on his property and clean up the debris.
Okay, the biggest thing is, and I don't know, Anthony may have to look. I don't believe he's the landowner. I believe his mother is.
No, it's no.
Yeah, the
his
property is in his name.
It's
I
in
did
his
check on- I
name.
did check on that, yeah.
It's
Is
in
it-
his
but-
name and the pastor came in and paid his back taxes.
Okay, because
Yeah,
there's a senior and a junior. And last time I looked, it was still in the senior's name, at least in the town report.
Okay,
Annual
well,
report.
the senior passed away, correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so let's see what happens with this pastor and hopefully we get someplace.
Okay.
I don't think the town can require anything in writing either, because the town has no jurisdiction to say who can go on somebody's property. That's between the congregation and the property owner.
No, you know what, Dan, you're probably right. You are probably right. Yep.
But if it's almost at our suggestion, I just assume we protect ourselves. You know, essentially, we said these are the options that you have, and none of them are fabulous.
I was gonna say, you may get it in writing, you may not.
So are you
Let's-
saying I should send a letter to the pastor? And just ask him what they're willing to do?
Or I would be, I mean, I would feel satisfied if we had something in a file at the town office that the landowner
Mm-hmm.
signed that
Mhm.
says that
Gives him authorization.
Yep, gives them authorization to,
I will call the pastor tomorrow and tell him we need that.
yeah, I just think if we can cover ourselves if we
Okay.
have to for any reason.
All right, I will do that tomorrow.
All right, thanks, Gary.
Yep.
All right, anything else, Anthony?
No, ma'am.
All right, next up, we do have an executive session. Does anybody else have anything? Do we want to take a 2-minute break and then get into executive session? Or are we happy just rolling on? I'm happy just moving if we want to. Okay, good night, guys.
Let's go.
All right, I make a motion that the board exits the select board meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ricky, you in? Okay. I make a motion that we enter the executive session.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hi, Mike. Oh, you're muted.
Yes, I am. Sorry. Good evening.
It's okay. Good evening.
I was waving earlier because you were voting and I saw people raise their hands, so I actually waved.